Parliament is the law-making agency in India, which has formulated, it makes as a different number of a law required by our society. Our society. Parliament. India has the two forms of the governments are there. One has a parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary form of government. And second is a presidential form of government. Presidential form of government. Presidential form of government. Presidential form of government. So let's start from first. Parliamentary. Parliamentary form of the government. Its real head is the real head of the government has considered the Prime Minister of the country. Prime Minister, which is as the leader of a ruling party, which has present in a Lok Sabha. In the other side, the presidential form of the government, it has used for those countries where the president has the supreme powers. But in our country, the president has considered the nominal head of our country. President is the nominal head of the country and Prime Minister is the real head of the country. Prime Minister is the real head of the country. So the parliament, when we are talking about the parliament has played a very important role in our country. Through the parliament, the people are getting as the opportunity through which they can represent themselves in government. They can represent themselves in government. That is the purpose of a parliament which has opted in India, in our country, India, through which the people they can represent in our government. In our government. Now the question arises, why do we as a parliament structure, parliamentary structure has opted in India? Parliamentary structure has opted in India. So when India declared as independent, afterwards, the strugglers, those freedom strugglers which contributed for the freedom of India from the British control, from colonial government, they try to make as a that kind of a nation, where will be as a problems not exist. For this, as the earlier during as a British age, Britishers they formed as the INC, Indian National Congress, in 1885 at Bombay by A.O. Hume. This was a British official which was formed as the Indian National Congress in 1885 Bombay. Clear? Afterwards, the second political party which was formed in India, it was as a Muslim League. Muslim League to procure as the rights of the Muslims in India. Procured the rights of Muslims in India. For this, as a Muslim League was founded in 1906. That Muslim League which was demanded as a separate nation from India. That nation which favor as the beliefs of the Islam for the Muslims, to secure the rights of the Muslims. So before our independence, there were the two important political parties were there, Muslim League and the Indian National Congress. So they took in a different number of the movements, participating in the movements which were initiated by the Mahatma Gandhi, because the Mahatma Gandhi and other leaders of a Congress and Muslim League, they were not favored the British policies. Those British policies which were formulated by the Britishers according to them as in favor of the Indians. The idea behind as the formation of the Indian National Congress was that they try to make the Indians engage in a political structure. Those Indians which work as which can be as a create as a problem from the Britishers, for the such number of Indians they make as a Congress to which they can engage in a political structure, not work against of the, they will not work against of the Britishers. So for which, to which the Britishers, they tried to engage the Indians. They earlier as formed as the Indian National Congress, and afterwards the Government of India Act was passed in 1909. Government of India Act passed in 1909, which allowed some of the areas, some of the constituencies of India through which the people can participate in government, through which people can elect their representatives. And during the colonial period, all were not getting as a right to vote. Only as a limited number of males were allowed to cast their votes during the British age, not all. Only in a limited number of legislative assemblies, constituencies were there through which the people can elect their representatives, not all. Women were not having as a right to vote. But after the independence of India in 1947, those strugglers which contributed in a freedom of India, they tried to make as a nation where the people can independently take part in a government. That's why as a democratic structure has followed by the country, indirect form of a democracy followed by the India. Indirect, why? Because our large size of population has not allowed for the practicing of a direct form of democracy. In direct form of democracy, people directly taking as a decisions related with the country. Clear? ऐसा उन countries में possible है where the small population is there, with the use of a smaller number of people, they can make as a law. But in our country where the 130 crores of people are there, if they will start to take as a decision on a particular issue, it will be not possible. That's why there is an indirect form of a democracy is there. For this, the indirect form of democracy, the parliamentary structure has followed in India. Parliamentary structure has followed in India. Parliament has consisting the two of the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the two of the houses of the parliament are present in India. Lok Sabha is the lower house of the parliament. This is as the lower house of the parliament. Rajya Sabha is the upper house of the parliament. Rajya Sabha is the upper house of the parliament. Lok Sabha has consisting that there is a provision of the 552 members. There is a provision of the 552 members in a Lok Sabha, but presently there are 545 are there. 545 members are present in a Lok Sabha, out of which 543 are elected by the citizens of India. 543 elected by the citizens of India, and 2 are nominated by the President of India. 2 members of a Lok Sabha directly nominated by the President of India, which belong from the Anglo-Indian community. Anglo-Indian community. Whereas the Rajya Sabha, there is a provision of a 250 members, 250. Provision means the number of seats which are possible, which can be as increased till as a 250. And Lok Sabha, there is a provision of 552 members, not the more members, it can be as a seat. Presently as a 545, as per the increasing population, the number of seats, it can be as increased till 552, not more than. Same as in Rajya Sabha, there is provision of a 250 seats are possible. Provision of a 250 seats are there, but presently a 245 members are present in a Rajya Sabha. Out of which as the 245, out of which as the 233 are the elected, 233 members of a Rajya Sabha are elected, and 12 are nominated by the President of India. 12 members of Rajya Sabha nominated by the President of India, which has done the superior work in a different fields associated with the sciences, literature, art, sports, cinema, etc. Clear? So 12 members of a Rajya Sabha are directly nominated by the President of India. Next, as the Lok Sabha is the House of the People, Rajya Sabha is the House of the Representatives. House of Representatives. Next difference as Lok Sabha has elected for the period of the 5 years. After completion of the 5 years, Lok Sabha has dissolved. Lok Sabha has dissolved. After that, the elections, again, newer Lok Sabha has elects. Newer Lok Sabha has elects. Clear? After the completion of the 5 years, a newer Lok Sabha has elected through the elections. But Rajya Sabha has worked for the 6 years. The tenure of the time period of a Rajya Sabha is just 6 years. 6 years. Lok Sabha is known as the permanent house. Lok Sabha is the permanent house of the parliament. Sorry, Lok Sabha is the temporary house of the parliament. Temporary house of the parliament which has dissolved after the 5 years. But the Rajya Sabha is the permanent house of the parliament. Rajya Sabha is the permanent house of the parliament which has continuously worked. It neither dissolved at any time. Means the 1/3 member of a Rajya Sabha, 1/3 member, the 33% of a total members of a Rajya Sabha, these are relieved, these are removed, and the next 1/3 are elected. 1/3 are elected or nominated for the Rajya Sabha. It means it has continuously worked. It neither dissolved. Then after as a 2 years, next 2 years, the next of the 1/3, it will be as a removed and a newer will elect. Each and every member has works in Rajya Sabha for the period of 6 years, but in Lok Sabha as the 5 years. But it may be as the conditions are there when the government has dissolved, when the not the, any of a party has getting the it has having the clear majority. Under such circumstances, the re-elections can possible. Re-elections are possible if the not the any of a single party having the clear majority. Majority means a more than 50% of a seats not possessing by the any of a political party. Under such circumstances, the re-elections can possible. Re-elections. Elections are of the 3 types in India. There are the elections are occurred in a 3 of the types. One as a general elections, which has organized after completion of the 5 years. General elections. General elections. General elections, which has organized after the 5 years. General elections. Second are the midterm elections. Midterm, otherwise we can say as a re-elections. Re-elections. These are also known as the midterm elections or the re-elections. And third as the by-elections. 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 Now, what's the difference? General elections are organized after completion of the 5 years. Completion of the 5 years. Re-elections are a midterm elections. It can be organized under such circumstances. Under such circumstances when government has dissolved. When government has dissolved. As we learned earlier, there are the 545 members, their provision in a Lok Sabha. 545 members, their provision in a Lok Sabha. That party which has possessing the 273 candidates won in elections, it can form the government. It can form the government because it is as the more than the half. Half of the 545 is a 272 and a half. So that party which is possessing the 273 or more than their candidates, they won the seats in a elections, it can only form the government. But after the result of the elections, BJP got as a 210 seats, not as a 273. Second as the INC, Indian National Congress, it won as a 190 seats, clear. Third as the Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party, for example, it has possessing the 50 seats. 50 seats, and the others are a large number of smaller parties, independent candidates. These are possessing as a 95 as the remaining. 95 as the remaining. In that state, if the BJP has joined with the Aam Aadmi Party, their total number of seats, it will be as a 260, but it requires as a 273, it can't make as a government. BJP has collided with the others. All the number of smaller parties, their members are included under the BJP. 210 plus 95. Figure it will be as the figure which will be come out afterwards as a 305 number of seats, means more than a 273. Under such circumstances, BJP, it can form the government. BJP government, it can form the government. Clear? It can form a government. But government has formed, it starts to work in country. But after the completion of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, in any of a time of the, before of the 5 years, before the completion of the 5 years, these extra members, those members which supported as a BJP for the making of their government, if they took back their support, under such circumstances, the BJP will possess only as a 210 seats. It will be as a lesser than the half of the total number of the seats of Lok Sabha. Under such circumstances, midterm elections or re-elections are organized. Clear? Re-elections and midterm elections are organized under that state when the government has dissolved. Here in that state where the 95 extra members, those earlier supported the BJP for making of the government, they took back their support. Under such circumstances, BJP failed to prove their majority in a Lok Sabha. When we're talking about the rest of the two parties, 190 of Indian National Congress, it is a less than a 273. Aam Aadmi Party is a less than a 273. Clear? So they collectively can't make as a government. If the INC has started to collide these 95 others plus Aam Aadmi Party or only as a others under it, then it can has possible to form the government. It can form the government. Yes, Jayant?
सर जब री इलेक्शंस होंगे तो तब देश में इमरजेंसी हो जाएगी.
अच्छा. Yes, anybody else? Japji? Of the parliamentary and presidency. Okay. अब emergency की state क्या है? When as a government has dissolved, either as a after completion of 5 years, 5 साल हो गए हैं government को. Afterwards, that ruling party, which the Prime Minister of India, which will be as a resigned from their post. अगर resign करेगा तो election होगी. So when the Prime Minister of India, it will be as a resigned from their post. Under such circumstances, the president rule, it will be as a implement. President rule has implement over a country. That's why presidential rule has simultaneously work in India with the parliament. Clear, Japti? Parliamentary form of the government is a that government in which parliament which has headed by the Prime Minister, which is as a real head of the country. Prime Minister is the real head of the country, has responsible for the administration. In that state, abhi kaha, after completion of 5 years, 5 years cross, 5 years completes, the country needs a newer government. Under such circumstances, Prime Minister will resign from their post and the newer elections will occur. Newer elections. Under such circumstances, the president rule has implements. हम उसे emergency situation नहीं कहेंगे. Emergency has situate before completion of the 5 years of a government. That state is known as an emergency. But in that situation, after completion of the 5 years, government has resolved. That authority has to maintain by the President of India. Clear? It has maintained by the President of India. इसके लिए वो उसका role है. That's why there are both of the government. Presidential government is there as well as a parliamentary form of government. Clear? Jayant, clear? Jayant. Next is the third type of elections is the by-elections. By-elections are not associated with the organization of elections in a complete of India. Complete of India. For example, due to as any of a situation, any incident which has caused accident हो गया कहीं पर, real accident हो गया, under such circumstances, a railway minister resigned from their post. If any of a minister resigned from their post or either the minister has died, the member of a Lok Sabha either belong from a ruling party or opposition party, it died. Uski death ho gayi hai. Under such circumstances, the by-elections are organized. By-elections, these are organized in those particular constituency, not in complete India. But general elections and re-elections are occurred in complete of India. It will be as organized on a complete of India. Clear? The difference between the three types of elections? Clear? Clear, Mida, Saksham, Mida. Any doubts? Online and offline. Any doubts? General elections occurred after 5 years. Re-elections before completion of the 5 years when the government has dissolved. And third, as a by-elections when the person has resigned from their post and on such particular constituency, elections will organize, or either For example, Jalandhar, the candidate of a Jalandhar has resigned. Earlier, the 2013 as a Vinod Khanna, which earlier as elected from the Gurdaspur seat. When he died, Bollywood star Vinod Khanna died in 2013. Under such circumstances, the Sunny Deol elected from that particular constituency through by-elections. वहीं पर elections हुई थी और कहीं नहीं. Not favorable for the people. So opposition has restricted the freedoms of it has restricted the government by criticizing their policies. Fifth one is parliament is a law-making agency. Parliament is a law-making agency. Law-making means the law-making processes are occurred through the parliament. In a form of a bill, law has introduced in a bill the matter associated with the life, with the society, with the life of the people, has introduced in a assembly, in a Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, in a form of a bill. Bill can introduce in their state when assembly in session. When Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are in session, then the bill will introduce. When the assembly is not in session, when an assembly is when the assembly is not in session, under such circumstances, the ruling party, the government, it can pass a resolution. It can introduce a resolution. Bill can introduce when the house in session, and when the house is not in session, under such circumstances, there will be as the resolution will introduced by the government. Resolution is a document. It's a kind of a application when assembly in a session, Lok Sabha in session, under such circumstances, first of all, the bill, it will be the read out by the minister, that minister of a ruling party which has introduced that particular bill in an assembly. It will distribute the number of copies of that bill in different languages, because in our country there is not as one of the national language, there is not any of a language has considered as our national language. All the languages are equal. All the languages are equal, so that these number of people, the representatives are elected from the different parts of a country. That's why their copies will publish in a different number of languages. Then the speaker, it will decide that the bill has passed by the house or not. Once if the bill has passed in a first house, Lok Sabha, then it will be moved towards the second house, Rajya Sabha. Same procedure will follow as a 3 reading. First reading, bill will introduce, their copies will distribute. Second, as the bill, debates will organize. If the Rajya Sabha has considered, it can also suggest that some of the suggestions to that particular bill. With the modified form, it will be introduced again in a 3rd reading. Then the speaker will decide that the bill has passed or not. After the approval given by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, bill will send towards the president for their consent. If the president has considered bill needs some modifications, under such circumstances, the bill can modify. It can modify or send back towards the assembly, sent back towards the Lok Sabha or either the Rajya Sabha, any of the house. Clear? Any of the house with the suggestions. But if the president has approved, under such circumstances, bill will becomes as a law. Bill becomes as a law. That matter has also given in your 4th chapter of civics. That bill, it becomes as a law. Clear? So parliament has also playing as a making of a law making procedure. So these are the functions of parliament. Functions of parliament. Till there any questions? Till there any questions? Now, next topic, the last topic of this chapter, why do we need as a parliament as who are present in a parliament? In parliament, there are the citizens of India are present. The elected representatives of the citizens of India are present. Sound motion means pitch of a sound. They start to beating the bench like this. If the pitch of a sound, the louder sound has considered by the speaker, under such circumstances, the speaker will approve that the bill has passed. But if when the call of a speaker, the pitch of this beating of a bench is the less louder, then under such circumstances, bill can again discuss or modified in an assembly. It will be stayed in an assembly for the more tenure of time. That bill, possible that the bill, it can be stay in that assembly for the period of 5 years. Next 5 years, possibilities are there. If the bill has not for the passing of that particular bill, which will become as a law, because all these are also elected from the representatives. These are also the representatives elected from the different constituencies of India. This was our chapter, why do we need as a parliament? Any doubts? With this as another chapter, next chapter has also covered the half of the cover. What is the procedure of a lawmaking in India? In presidential form of government, president is a nominal head and prime minister is a real head. Yes, prime minister is a real head of the country and president is a nominal head of the country. Yes, Jayant.